Aloha everybody, good evening on this Thursday, 6 June 21st, 2018, and this marks the 7th week of the eruption. So eruption is still pumping, still lava is moving pretty quick in these levees and in this channelized flow. There's no signs of slowing down. Fissure 8 is still pumping. Fissure 18, 16, and 6 is starting to pump. Also, fissure 10, which hasn't been active, looks like there's some cracks on fissure 10, which is the corner of Pomaikai and Malama Street. Looks like and it's still looks like those cracks are actually widening there on Pomaikai and Malama. So looks like something's happening. But my update for today, this morning, going into the ocean entry with Kalapana Culture Tours boat this morning. Lava flows continue to move south just a tad. We were out there on the boat this morning, and there were two large ocean entries that was creating a lace plume that was kind of going over the Pahoa area. On the way back, the whole Pahoa and Hilo area was full with fog. It was pretty bad air quality this morning, but the lava flows there are about almost half a mile wide, about a third of a mile to almost a half a mile wide. A lot of entry points, but two major entry points. Those major entry points was in the result of a huge river of lava entering the ocean just south of Waiaupai. We could see the lava entering the ocean. We could see this huge river. It was moving at a high rate of speed, and it was entering the ocean at a high rate of speed. So the cooling process was being introduced to this lava, and it was creating a huge littoral explosions at the ocean entry, and it was beneath the ocean. The place where we were at, we were about 120 yards away from the ocean entry, and the area where we were at was about 250 to 300 feet deep, and it was rocky in that area. So it was pretty awesome viewing this morning. Tons of ocean entries, again on the north side. The lava flows that was heading north into the subdivision where it was the last remaining homes has pretty much stalled out, so it slowed down tremendously. Other than that, we have new updates coming up. Philip can talk about what's going on. If you guys have any questions, let me know, and we can try to see if we can answer the questions. But also, what did we find out today? Yeah, again, it was awesome this morning. Ken Boyer was with us this morning. So yeah, hang on. There you go. Aloha, Phil.
How's it, everyone? All right, great.
How's everything going, man?
It's going all right.
How was your experience last night?
Last night it's pretty mind-blowing to see how much that river is moving and how it's forming rapids, how much material as far as those blocks of lava are moving through it. All the video Ikaika posted is really spectacular. We talked about wanting to see how those boulders moved in a river of lava, trying to figure out how deep it was. We got at least some information on that, kind of, some idea of how that actually works. Most of them were not actually rolling, but there were some, I don't know, maybe like 6 foot bigger blocks that we saw in there, like, sticking out and then getting fully submerged and then, disappearing from there. So we know that's more or less how deep it is, and it's shallower than that over where the rapids are, especially. Yeah, and the standing waves that kind of form when lava goes over top of those boulders, moving. Very dynamic. Yeah, it changes a lot, and then like second basis out there. Yeah, so we also have seen video, like the most spectacular by Brad Lewis sent us the video those big pieces of channel walls or the islands that are breaking off and moving. And he mentioned one of those actually got wedged in the river at some point when he was witnessing it and caused an overflow. That's probably the worst case of, you know, anyone who's near that area, right, who's kind of drawn there for whatever reason. You know, it's quite dangerous, yeah.
I know. So any new updates you have?
Well, we don't have a new map today. I can show you the one from yesterday again, you know, which basically means not much has changed, right? So, as Ikaika mentioned, everything is still coming from 8, still moving all the way up around and going in the ocean, more or less the same place. No real changes, you know, that we can notice. Yeah, there's this is a spot, this is old news by now, but here is where the small overflow happened. I saw a little brush fire yesterday that was
right by the Y.
Right by the Y, right over here, yeah. Exactly, that area of concern that we were talking about.
So that's the exact area where a lava viewing area was gonna make a lava viewing area
being
there.
Considered, yeah.
Well, you know, right now it's highly considering that area right now.
So yeah, but that's by today. It's not new today. It was from yesterday. And if anything, maybe the only change is, you know, where, as far as ocean entry, kind of how it's set up and where it's going in, right? In this map right here, doesn't really show the clear channel, but let me go back to the thermal from yesterday also, or from 2 days ago now, right? Kind of shows us pretty well right here. So looking at this section down in here, you can see the river takes this big bend right here, and that's where the main ocean entry actually is.
And this is the reason why it's moving south. So it's actually fanning everything back this way.
Yeah, so underneath this kind of dark spot, the lava is moving underneath that crust and it's popping out down in this section, right? So even though it's kind of dark, there's lava all the way underneath there. It wouldn't be getting to the edge. So it's probably, you know, it's probably moving around here. You know, we imagine it kind of like a garden hose. If you open a garden hose with the water on and don't hold on to the end of it, it's going to flop around back and forth. So this thing is, you know, basically doing this kind of moving around. Right now it's mostly moving south, right? And maybe because this bend is hard to sustain, maybe it wants to go more straight once it's built enough ground to actually do that. So that might be what's going on, you know, but for sure we know that it's shifting to the south, and it's actually still pretty wide. There's probably a whole area in between, I'm guessing, yeah, 1 and 2, and then some stuff in between, probably, yeah.
Right.
And you can still see some heat up in the northern section, although it's probably still leaking out from the middle of the flow rather than being fed by the river directly, right? So
another thing too, you can see, if you want to go down just a tad, this is Kīlauea right here, and you can see how close it is, pretty close. And this morning it will move. So this is an old map, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday. So
yeah.
This morning it's probably right around here, this area. So from this morning, our perspective on the boat, you know, we had some people that that has stuff at Kīlauea, and they were saying it's pretty close. It's almost less than a third of a mile away from.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer. Yeah, and yeah, it keeps pushing into the ocean and keep making ocean entry to the south, like we're predicting. Right, the longer it goes on, it kind of can creep. It's making a big pile right here that's taller than the ground next to it. So that's why it keeps being able to march over, and make an ocean entry to the south, and march over, and so that's an interesting process. And you know, we're all wondering how long, you know, how much can it do that before it maybe gets straight enough, or you know, is it really going to want to go that way or not? You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it seems like it's going pretty slow still. It's not really moving in that direction. It's just kind of it's edging its way over. It's almost like it's rolling that way rather than actually still flowing into the ocean that way. Yeah, so that's kind of the rift zone update. The summit pattern has been got slightly off today. So I'm going to show you guys the earthquake maps. So there's an earthquake map. It's fairly similar pattern to what we've seen. You know, big cluster underneath Hale Maumau on the summit of the volcano, like Kīlauea caldera, and then kind of a spattering of these other ones around. Like, you know, here's, you know, the most recent one down here. There's nothing happening there that's major to worry about. One earthquake here and there, just to remind you guys, is not an indication of anything volcanic happening. It's just the ground adjusting, right? The thing's moving everywhere, so the ground everywhere's got to adjust to it. For years and years after this eruption will end, that'll be the case. But for today, it's all, the main action is all up here. I'll zoom in a little bit.
I just talked to Ken Boyer, who is in Volcano, and he said there's tons of earthquakes today.
There were a lot today. Yeah, I was in volcano most of this morning as well, and I'll show you guys the tilt plot, which kind of will help us talk about this. Oh, where'd I go? Back one. All right, so let's look at this one right here for the last week. Yeah, so what happened today is that our pattern of every 20 to 24 hours got broken, right? It took us maybe 33, 34, 32, somewhere near that many hours between the last explosion that happened yesterday in the early morning and one that happened today in the actual early afternoon, about 1 so in the afternoon. So for all morning before that one actually released, those extra however many hours we had, right, almost 10 hours of extra time of it not exploding according to pattern, that's when we started feeling earthquake after earthquake after earthquake almost all the time. Yeah, lots of big ones. But it did eventually release and caught and release that explosive force, as it's being called. Not a whole lot of ash, they said, maybe only 1,000 feet in the air. But the ground is still slumping in that area. So our pattern broke a little bit. I mean, we still had the explosion happening, but we have a little bit of a gap, and so it'll be really interesting to see if that pattern is changing somewhat, or if that was a one-off kind of thing. And if it is changing, what does that actually mean as far as what's going on up at the volcano, at the top of the volcano, which clearly is going to affect what happens down here at the edge of the volcano.
Ken just said there was over 700 earthquakes today.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to load it up here on my screen, and it told me, oh, warning, you shouldn't load more than 500 at a time. It's like, well, that's just how many there are. It's pretty unusual to have that many in one day in one place. So it's really something. You know, I don't know what the records actually are, but it's very impressive there now. So yeah, as far as then why it might actually be, we're kind of at this point kind of grasping at any kind of indication or any kind of straw of like what might be changing up there. It could be that there's slightly less, less pressure isn't building quite as fast. Is one possibility, right? That's why it took longer to explode. Or it could be the pressure's building the same, and there's more stuff holding it in, and so it had to build higher pressure to explode it out. That could be it also. So two very different things that could be happening, right? So we don't really know. We're gonna, that's just one thing to consider when we look for a second and third and fourth and fifth thing, and they start telling us, oh, maybe it's more or less pressure, or the dynamics change. That's when it'll actually tell us something more about it. This by itself doesn't tell us really anything. It's just kind of piques of curiosity. So I'm keeping a close eye on this. How many hours there are between eruptions, explosions up there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you think about the USGS blackout? And I don't think, that President Trump was pretty talking about, restricting reports from USGS from us, but I mainly think it's just mainstream EPA stuff that is happening in the waters in the United States.
I don't know, I don't want to turn this into really political commentary, but I will say that I know that USGS in most of the country doesn't deal with volcanoes. That's just how it is. Most states don't have volcanoes. There are states that have volcanoes, like Hawaii and Alaska and Oregon and Washington and California, for example. There's also the active kind of volcanic areas, geologically at least, not in human times, but in New Mexico, Arizona, those areas as well, right? But most of the time, USGS on the mainland is dealing with soil samples, water samples, that kind of thing, the actual, what's in the groundwater, that kind of thing, things that are related to the environmental health of a particular place, So if I had to guess, it's got nothing to do with volcanoes, it's got to do with soil and water samples, right? And then I'll just leave it at that, I'm not going to take sides on anything, but, I would imagine that he's probably concerned with those stories in particular, right? Rather than stories of the volcano, which are kind of out of human control.
Okay, guys. What else? Any more updates? Oh, there's some photos that came up today.
Yeah, there were some photos. Let's see if we can pull up the photos. That's not it over here. Nope, that's not it either. I think that was it. Yeah, so. All right. So, the first photo is a photo was released of Halemaumau. Let me kind of get the zoom in version of it. There it is, and this is taken from up by the Jagger Museum, right? So, contrary to rumors, the museum is still there. It's still standing. It hasn't fallen in or anything like that. It is cracked, right? But just being cracked doesn't mean, it's destabilized for sure. And that's a good reason to take a lot of precautions, like moving everything out of the museum, especially those valuable works of art and things that took a long time to collect and gather and display, right? But it's not falling in as we speak. That could change, and that's why they're making sure that if something like that does happen, it's not a scramble at the end, right? And I think a lot of us wish that we would have had more better organization and lead up to evacuations and having to make decisions and that kind of thing. They're trying to do that as far ahead of time as possible, basically. So, you know, if nothing happens, move everything back in, then great, wonderful, you know. But if something does happen, if that piece of ground does begin to move, which it hasn't yet, it's just cracked, right? Then they're already ahead of the game. Yeah, I think to me, that's what it's really about. Yeah. So, I mean, especially that 6.9 earthquake cracked a lot of stuff all over the place, right? And so they really want to make sure to assess the building to make sure it's, you know, not going to be compromised by something else, you know, now that it's all cracked up.
Right.
So just wanted to mention that as well.
So the volume, we really don't know the volume of lava that's coming up in the East Rift Zone right now. So that's a question that nobody can answer because we don't know how deep these levees are. We don't know, you know, because it's all based on how deep and how wide and the cubic meter of lava.
We obviously can't do like a bottom profile or transect across this channel, or, you know, whether it's across it or up and down it. We know the depth changes a lot. We see that by the boulders that come up and they disappear and they appear kind of again. So that's definitely changing over time, and it changes left and right across the width of the river as well. So it varies a lot. So you have to make some assumption of how deep it is on average, right? And that average can make a big difference to your calculations when you multiply it by a huge number, like how many millions of cubic meters, you know, are coming out, or thousands of cubic meters per second kind of thing. A small, you know, like a 0.6 to a 0.7 may make a big difference as far as those calculations go. So no, we don't really know. We know it's a lot, you know, and that's why the volume estimates range, you know, from 3 to 6 to 9 million cubic meters kind of thing.
So, yeah, as far as civil defense messages, we really don't know what's going on with that. As far as, you know, credentials, I think it was you needed credentials to get in past the Highway 130 checkpoint to get down to the night market down in Uncle Roberts. That's what I think why they put that up this morning, but not too sure. Was and is concerned about Dylan or saying not this at all. Well, as of right now, we really don't know about that one. We followed up with Josiah, and he said there was a DLNR officer talking to him today about, you know, it is not illegal to touch cooled lava on your property. So you can, there is no reason to be stopped if you are just taking in company to your house. So, yeah, that's the update for that one. All right, what you got there, Phil?
I was trying to pull it up on here, but it's not coming up on the iPad.
Oh, another thing that happened today is Mauna Loa. What happened, Phil, on Mauna Loa?
Oh, so Mauna Loa today was downgraded from advisory status yellow to advisory status green, right? So that means that they're not concerned about Mauna Loa erupting. I think they just did that to kind of emphasize that it's not erupting, it's not near erupting, you know, and also to focus our attention on Kīlauea more, right? So the kind of the main workload thing that I see is that they're having to update Mauna Loa every week. It's what we're doing under yellow alert status, and now at green they're going to do it once a month. Right. So that's that's one guy who put all extra work towards Kīlauea. I think it's best probably to have in mind. And you know, there's no reason to panic or anything like that. I mean, it's until there's earthquakes in Mauna Loa first, you know, and then it's changing tilt, then nothing's happening over there. So once that happens, I'm sure they'll shift force back over that direction. So that's the word Mauna Loa. Just reaffirming what we've been saying for a while now.
Right. Yeah. Okay, another thing too, is there helicopters landing on PGB and 4. So they do have helicopters going into PGB to drop off workers to check on the plant. So that's what's happening there. Green is good. Okay, any other questions? Yes, we did, Auntie Uy. Yes, we did. Ha! So other than that, yeah. Hold on, guys. We're gonna grab something else. Well, I guess air quality is okay right now. Trade winds are coming back this week. Some brisk trade winds will be pushing these this plume away, but Kona and Kau will start to get some fog also. Oh yeah, at the hub here, Puhonua, we've been blessed to have a company donate showers to here for people. So 6 to 8 in the morning, 6 to 8 in the afternoon, you can shower here and eat a hot meal in the evening for dinner. So
yeah, hot shower.
Yeah, hot shower, and the showers are pretty awesome.
Yeah, nice and clean. Yeah.
So
seems
just a small break. Yeah, so there was a small break by the Y. Yesterday we created a brush fire. Nothing to be alarmed about. That flow had stopped and seized over, so it's okay there. Taking video. Yes, rain is coming this weekend. Okay, Phil.
I'm trying to pull up. There's one tilt-meter station we can actually look at that's somewhat close to here. But I'm having trouble loading it up. I'm trying to see if I can pull it up for you guys. This is one extra tiny scrap of information we can try to pull up here.
Yeah. Beautiful music in the showers, for sure.
There is, yeah, that's right.
So another thing too, geologists cannot tell when this will end because there's not enough data to actually tell. They cannot predict when it's going to end. As far as what's happening now, still pumping, tons of lava coming out of Fissure 8, still moving strong, yeah, the volume actually has picked up in the last couple days.
Yeah, it's hard for us to say, but one thing we forgot to mention already is that we did have reports of the cracks, that there are cracks opening still around Fissure 10, the now inactive Fissure 10, right? So it's had cracks for a while already. The cracks have been steaming, putting out gas. But there are some extra little cracks, right? You know, so more small ones, nothing really big. They have moved only this far apart, but enough for steam to come out and like kill the grass, that kind of thing. Which shows the ground is definitely still moving. You add that to that 4.6 we had yesterday, which was that south flank movement we talked about before, and it kind of all adds together. The south flank is moving, and the ground is still being put under a lot of pressure, right? The magma is moving underneath that area still today, right? So to get out of Fissure 8, it goes underneath that area under Fissure 10. So the fact that it's cracking there could mean that there's more pressure pushing the lava out, right? That could lead to increased volume. It could mean that it's enough pressure to push the land more sideways, cause the top to kind of crack open and start dropping in as well. It's hard to really say, but you know, given everything that we're seeing, it seems quite possible the volume has gone up in the last day or two, especially, right? Since we've seen that. Yeah, okay, let's see if I can.
Oh, and Halanui is okay right now. Yeah. You guys, I mean, we'll be the first one to let you know if lava is getting pretty close to Halanui, so Halanui is okay right now. Alright.
Alright, I'm getting there. I'm trying to get, my connection is really slow right now. There's this tilt-meter station right here.
Oh, no way. Where's that located, Phil?
So this is in the, I think it's in a forest reserve, right?
Malamaki?
It might, so yeah, I can zoom in, let's switch to base map so you can see exactly. Topo, let's zoom in a bit. Valkili. Yeah.
Valkili.
Valkili-Opuna Forest Reserve is what it is, yeah.
So there's a tilt meter right there. Valkili-Opuna.
Yeah, and we can click on it. And we can get the last month of data on it here.
Wow.
And so there it is. That's the closest one we have to over here, right? And you see all those little spikes, or these, the earthquakes, explosions that are kind of ringing the whole system, ringing the whole island. That's what you can see. You feel them a long way away. But the overall pattern you see here is a drop. The green line and the blue line are both going down, Yeah. Right, so that shows it's kind of, in that particular area, it seems to be deflating, right? So there's magma leaving that area around Kīlauea. Around here, though, what we've seen from the ground imagery is that it's whatever's coming in is matching what's going out, right? So we're right where we are at the actual nozzle exit for the lava of the eruption right now. There's no change. You know, it's not decreasing at all. It's, if anything, it seems to be. You know, it's hard to say these changes from one day to 2 days to the next. That, you know, the fissure looks a little smaller, looks a little taller. Like it really is as big as a change in the whole amount of supply coming in. Could be something minor in the dynamics of how it's coming out of that hole. You know, also we talked about how the rivers themselves, like the amount of the way that the flow in the river changes, the thing splits so many times. It could be that the flow is, you know, going more in one branch, then more in the other branch, then more in one branch, and there's so many branches that it's really tricky to see the whole thing all at one time, right? Which is why they look at that volume, especially up at the top near the fissure, before all that splitting starts happening. Yeah, but overall, just, you know, so, you know, we're looking for any sign of change, you know, and that's kind of promising, the fact that it seems to be dropping off, but that's uphill of here, right? Just like Pu'o'o has been in a similar state. The lava has all been leaving there and coming here. Yeah.
All right.
And no, you know, there's been no change. Like their actual rate hasn't changed at all, right? It's kind of a steady, what's been happening, it's still happening even there. Even that slow deflation, feeding the pressure down to here. So, you know, the basic story is not much change over the last day, the last few days actually, right? A few things at the margins here and there. But overall, it's just still pumping, just like we started off saying.
So, you know, other than that, you know, what did you see yesterday? And, you know, is the channelized lava, the perch walls, they're pretty much stable, but we've been seeing some breaches, small breaches here and there, that lava would go 10 to 30 yards away from the river. Yeah, so I mean, there are areas that seem more stable than other areas. That's probably the best that I can say it, you know, because what we see is that there are, like we saw the videos of pieces of the walls in some places, or those pieces of those islands, which maybe started off as a piece of a wall, getting broken off and getting pushed down the river, you know, in itself. So that goes to show that they in themselves are getting weakened, right? One thing that we've seen is, you know, where the lava comes around a bend and, you know, outside of a river, it's got to move faster than the inside to kind of maintain the speed of the river, right? So on the outside, it actually can be more erosional. It can actually cut into that rock more. And where we saw the area of the rapids, it looked like there had been at least some downcutting, you know, not a huge amount, you know, maybe a meter or a yard or so, like about that, you know, order, you know, not nearly as thick as the flow itself actually is. So it's not going anywhere below the actual flow that, you know, before the original land that was here before. It's kind of cutting through what made itself. But it's definitely cutting down, and it's definitely cutting under the edges of those banks, right, on the outside of those bends. And so those things are overhung, so that if you cut out the bottom of it long enough, eventually the thing is just going to crack and tip in, and then that's how when it's getting swept away. So especially around the outside of those bends, you're seeing a lot of that kind of erosion of undercutting of the channel wall. Right. It could be, I'm not going to say that it's actually physically cutting, or actually, you know, a lot of it is melting. There's a lot of lava pushing in that area, so it's getting very, very hot. You know, we see other rocks that are kind of boulders outside of the river itself glowing red from the heat of the thing, so we know that you know, the heat of it's immense, and it is probably weakening it quite a bit and actually melting a lot of the rock, melting that outer edge and causing it to collapse that way. So, you know, combine the physical effect and the melting effect together has actually been pretty strong to witness. So that's why it keeps breaking off pieces from the edge, and that's going to keep happening. Yeah. And unfortunately, the faster it goes, the more it probably has the ability to cut, right, and not exactly burn, but melt its way, you know, through those connections and cause it to destabilize. But overall, the channel does seem to be within those banks and below it, you know, by a decent amount, you know, half a yard, you know. I'm sure it varies a lot, you know, it's not really splashing out of the boundaries within the last few days, you know, so that's positive for us. So, all right, guys. So that's our update for today. We'll be giving another update tomorrow. We'll be in the boots on the ground, giving some updates in the evening. We'll be out and investigating what's going on in our community, and also what's happening around up high. All right, guys, everybody. You gotta do a
musical exit. Yeah.
Ah, wish I could.
Okay, hold on, I'll hold on for you.
You guys want music? I just was sorry. I just was practicing a little bit. I haven't been playing guitar for a while. And might just play a song. Okay. Yeah. So this song, I just was playing around with it. It's called Kumukahi. Talks about the place in Kapoho, the point, and also where all the lava is going to. Kumukahi Point. Thank you. All right. So everybody, what we like to say? Stay classy, Puna. Aloha.